This episode of the Pistonhead podcast has been brought to you by Quick Latch, manufacturers of quality push-button release hood pins and multi-purpose fasteners. Incorporating Quick Latch hood pins into your project car will allow you to no longer worry about reinstalling hitch pins or lanyards that'll scratch your paint from hood pin applications. Incorporating the universal mini Quick Latches into your build brings a wide variety of potential fastening applications, including bumper quick releases, interior glove boxes and access panels, engine covers, fuel filler lid latches, rear seat fold-down latches, ECU mounts, and more. They're also a good alternative to traditional quarter-turn fasteners that require the use of a tool to engage and disengage. You can check them out at www.quick-latch.com. That's www.quick-latch.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the Pistonhead podcast. I am your host, Jacob, and on this week we have Mr. Ryan Launtaigne. Ryan is one of the judges for Formula Drift. He also judges down in Brazil, in Russia for Formula Drift Japan. We chat about all the new judging criteria that's been changed coming up to this year's FD season. We talk about the role of media in all of the Formula Drift teams, talk about different driving styles from around the world, and some of his favorite drivers. Just a quick disclaimer on this one. Ryan was in a bar in Brazil when we record this, so there's going to be some background noise. For anybody who speaks Portuguese, I don't know what was said in the background, but if you hear something interesting, please let us know because I'm kind of curious what everyone was saying. So enjoy our podcast with Ryan Launtaigne.
Hello.
Hey, there you are. Yeah, video didn't want to connect there for a minute.
All right, here we are.
Oh, there it is. So what's going on, buddy?
Down in Brazil right now. Just finished the Super Drift Brazil first round last weekend. Kind of hanging out, staying away from the Canadian winter while I can.
Oh, come on. It's not that bad. It's like 3 degrees here, man.
Yeah, not as nice as my 35 down here.
You know, my favorite part about this whole conversation right off the bat is that I can talk to you in Celsius and you know what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah, right. That doesn't happen often, does it?
No, everybody I talk to is American. And I'll say something like 32, and I'm like, oh, wait, no.
Yeah, right.
100,
give me a second here.
97, carry the 2.
Yeah.
So that's wicked, man. How long you been in Brazil now?
Got down here last, was it a Wednesday and a half ago? So been down here for like 10 days now.
Oh, that's wicked. And you went down just for the one event and then decided to hang out ever since?
Yeah, the organizers of the event are really, really nice people. It's a family that runs the event, and they are really passionate about the sport. They're also very generous. They want to make sure that I'm taken care of. I'm happy. I feel like I'm being taken care of and everything, and they're doing an amazing job of it. They've been super great. We've had a barbecue every day. They've taken me to the beach. We've been all over the place. So it's been great.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's so happy to hear. I've never been to Brazil, but it's on my list. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely a place to see.
So what have you noticed with the drifting down there? How different is it?
The cars are mostly what's different. And I've noticed that everywhere I've been. I get this question all the time. And what it's come down to is the cars are very, very different. It depends where you are in the world. What cars are available? What's cheap? What's known? What has a lot of aftermarket support? And what has a lot of, just spare parts that you can acquire locally for those specific cars? Here we have a lot of Chevrolet Chevettes.
Okay.
That, oddly enough, we didn't have, I think, the generation maybe of Chevette that they have here. But the ones that they have here are pretty robust. They're still small cars. Rear-wheel drive, of course. They have small 4-cylinders, and they'll put turbos on them. And they use them from beginner all the way up to professional competition cars. So you'll see them completely stock, very bare bones, or you'll see them fully built with roll cages, shiny paint, nice wheels, and a bigger, like a 2-liter turbo of some kind that makes, 400 or 500 horsepower. So it's a wide range of cars from that specific chassis. You see a lot of BMWs, S chassis like you do anywhere else.
Yeah.
And varying driver skill, just like everywhere else too. You've got guys that are really, really good, that are at the top, that are truly the ones to look out for. And then you've got guys that are just kind of beginning and learning the ropes. So it's like a template that is used all over the world, just with different languages, different people, and different cars.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if there was like a specific technique that's used more there, because you see a big difference in between, Japanese and American drifting. And even I've started to notice even Canadian drifting having a little bit of a different flair as opposed to American. But I just wasn't sure, like, is there a particular style that they run, particular entry or transition style that they're using, or just whatever's working for the driver?
I think it's whatever's working. In terms of the Japanese or US style, they were using the D1 rules more than anything else up until I got here. Basically, they were really heavily Japanese based, because the owner of the series, Neto, he used to live in Japan. He used to run the Toge. He was heavily influenced by the Japanese drift scene, so he brought that over here when he started the series. And I think recently, I came over here the first time last fall for their final round, and they started to. His son actually came to compete in FD last season in Pro 2. He tried to compete. He really had a hard time with the car and everything. That's a story for another time. But when he saw the way that we do things at FD, he was blown away. He didn't expect that it could be so different. He didn't expect that the rules could be catered towards the drivers, that the judges could talk to the drivers and give them feedback and really help them out. So when he saw the way we did stuff, he went, whoa, this is really interesting. I want to bring one of these guys down and see if we can change things here. So yeah, they were heavily, heavily Japanese influenced. Car builds, I think, were probably more along the J style. Yeah. They used to bring Daigo Saito to a lot of rounds. They've had Yokoi down here before. I think other Japanese drivers have been here as well. I can't remember who, but they've named a few. Yeah, there's a big cross-pollination in between cultures of Japan and Brazil. Obviously, we see things like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the Brazilians taking a Japanese art and then turning it into their own, and then ultimately, in that case, making it a better version than the original. So I'm kind of curious if the same thing will happen with drifting, if we're going to start seeing an influx of of Brazilian drivers starting to make it in, we see them, go over to New Zealand or Australia or FD or anything like that. So they've had, I guess they've been questioning. They've been invited to go to Japan a few times now to drive. His son's name is Diego Higa, and I'm sure you recognize the name. He has been hesitant to go to Japan, especially after they got a little glimpse of the US, I guess, method or system. They really, I guess he was hesitant because they're a little worried about DOS, the judging system in D1. But aren't we all? Yeah, I think we all are. But they really like the Japanese driving style, and like I said, it's influenced them a lot. But I think that they really want to look more towards the US side in the future. I think that's what they've been telling me. I get little bits here and there through translations from people that can speak English. I know no Portuguese at all, so it's been a little bit tough. But some people here speak great English, so it's been helpful. Yeah. That's super cool. That's yeah, that's awesome. It's I'm not really biased one way or another. I see holes in both methods, but there is no perfect method for judging this type of driving. It's impossible, really. Exactly. So speaking of judging, you being a judge yourself, there's been a couple updates this year. There have, and I think it's going to fix some of the holes that we've seen in the past, but. I don't know if you could what you can elaborate on the new judging system. Well, the additions to the judging system. Really, it's not new, but it's ground down now, it seems. Yeah. So we travel a lot together, the FD team, and we're constantly talking about what can be done better, what we can change, what we can improve for the sport, for the series, whether it be in the US or Japan, because we're over there a lot too. And we're always talking about style. What is style? How is style going to be incorporated into the judging? How can it be understood by the fans? How can it be fair for the drivers as well? So one of the major things that we modified this year was style is going to change a little bit. It used to be, we had the acronym IFC, Initiation, Fluidity, and Commitment. Mm-hmm. And that was a modified version of Impact, Fluidity, and Commitment that we had, I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago. So now what we're going to have within the style portion of the judging system is strictly fluidity and commitment. So it'll just be the F and the C part, no more I. And we're going to throw initiation into both fluidity and commitment, but we're going to use them we're going to kind of dissect the initiation part of things a little bit, and we're also going to allow the fluidity and commitment to be a little more fluid depending on the track that we're at.
Oh, okay.
We noticed that the way that we had it designed before was it was a little too rigid. And this is something that we've modified going back to since I started in 2011. We went to a very strict version of the judging rules. Probably about 5 years ago was the peak of that really intense. We were analyzing every little thing. We were down to tenth of a point scoring, and all the errors that we could think of had deduction amounts, and the drivers were scared because they were afraid to make any tiny little mistake because we were going to be there with a -5 or a -0.5 or a -2 or it was very, very intricate and very annoying for us and for the fans and for the drivers. So we've been simplifying things since then, and we've been trying to make everything more understandable and also a little bit more fluid. Like I said, we want at one track, let's say New Jersey, for example, you're familiar with what New Jersey looks like. There's a very short run up.
Yep.
And it's kind of angled a little bit, the track, like it isn't a flat surface, even on the straightaway. So the drivers can't really go full throttle without the car dropping down a little bit on the bank, even though it's a straightaway. They are basically, you're going to go full throttle for the short distance and snap the car to angle as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of style that can really be thrown into the initiation there. It's just get the car sideways and then get into the drifting aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to, say, Road Atlanta, you can come down that hill. Some guys can come down there full throttle all the way, throw the car super early, and just hang the car at the right amount of angle, maintain that angle through the initiation down to that inside clip, and make it look amazing.
Yeah. Mad Mike Wadet's a great example of that with
right, like
his reverse entry in qualifying. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he can do that and maintain it. Whereas some drivers would come down a little bit more. They'd be on throttle, but they might not be on throttle all the way down. They'll initiate at the latest possible point and just kind of do the basic, the bare minimum to get through that corner.
Yep.
So at a track like that, we want to be able to give the guys that are doing a better job, that are really throwing it out there and being crazy for the fans. We want to be able to give them a little bit more of an advantage points-wise. And previously, we couldn't do that. It was just, this is the initiation and these are the points and that's all you can do. But now what we want to do, like I said, is to be more fluid and adapt to each track, give more points at a certain track for initiation and maybe a little bit less in other aspects of the fluidity and commitment portions. And then at other tracks, give a higher percentage of points to the qualifying aspect and a little bit less, because we only have a certain amount of points throughout the rest of the course. But we're going to make the points matter for what's important, basically, at each individual track.
Yeah, because certain tracks, you brought up New Jersey, being able to stick that wall, hold that wall the entire time is going to be more exciting, more skill, and take up more of the actual run than the initiation would. So you have to weigh those two sections of the course differently, it sounds like. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're getting at. And we've also changed the scoring for line, angle, and style as well. So previously we had line and angle at 35 points each. Yep.
And then we had 30 points for style. This year, what we've done is reduce line and angle to 30 points each, and which is a 60 total. And then the style portion is going to be 40 points.
Wow.
Which is going to be divided 20 and 20 for fluidity and commitment.
Okay. So I gotta ask, this might be a shitty question, but is this in response to the Forrest Wang controversy or him speaking up about the loss of style in it? Or is it like the general feedback from some of the fans? I'm just kind of curious where this was rooted from.
So this goes back to us. Like I said, we spend a lot of time together. Mostly it's myself, Andy Yen, Brian Eggert, Kevin Wells, Ryan Sage, and Robbie Nishida. We've been spending a lot of time together in Japan. Now, when we go to Japan, we go there 5 times a year. We're there for about a week, maybe about 6 to 7 days, depending on the event. And during that time, we spend a lot of time in the van going from the airport to Tokyo, from Tokyo to the track, from the track to some tourist spots where we'll hang out and be treated really well by the owner of FP Japan over there, Mr. Iwata. So we're in that van a lot. We're at the hotels a lot, where we might be kind of stuck, I guess, for the lack of a better term, especially a place like Okuibuki, which is a ski resort, where we're at that mountain and there's really nowhere to go. You know, it's like an hour drive to the next nearest town. So we're on that mountain. We barbecue every night. We hike up the mountain in the morning. We're spending time together, basically the whole time we're there, except when we're sleeping. And all we talk about is drifting. We talk about how the fans perceive drifting, how the drivers perceive our judging, and what we can do to improve everything. We've had Robbie Nishida helping us out for the last few seasons over there. And it gave us a really good perspective because he was a driver at the time in the FD Pro Series. So we were getting a different perspective than, we kind of get in our own little bubble sometimes where we think that everything that we're thinking up and doing is bulletproof and it's the best idea in the world. And we're kind of feeding each other a little bit like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. What a great idea. Let's write that down.
Yeah, it's an echo chamber.
And maybe it is, absolutely. And sometimes we need that guy that's a driver that'll kind of say, you know what, guys, maybe things should be done a little bit differently. And he gives us his idea, and we go, man, we never thought of that, or we didn't see that as being the perspective of a driver. So he's helped us out immensely. And during those times, we would often debate style versus line and angle. Should style be worth more? Should angle and line be worth less? Is it okay the way it is? And we came up with, talking with him and other drivers as well, maybe style should be weighted more heavily. Line and angle, the drivers now at the level that they're at in FD, yeah, sure, they're going to have little variations. Maybe they're going to be off a clip or off a zone because they made an error, but they all know where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
That's important, but it's fundamental. The style aspect is much more important and should be weighed more heavily because there is such a variation there from different drivers, different abilities to be more stylish, to be more aggressive, and to really show what drifting should look like. So we want to be able to reward the drivers that are doing it right. And it's not to punish the ones that aren't, but to show them what is being rewarded, and they'll go, oh, okay, that's what they're looking for at the same time.
Oh, it's good. I'm hoping with that emphasis on the style, we're going to see guys who maybe in the past were very stylish, but have moved more towards a mechanical style of drifting, move back towards the stylish, like Frederick Osbo being a great example. If you see what he does outside of FD, the dude's got style like crazy. His ability to get to rate to angle, his snap transitions are second to none. But when he goes to FD, because that wasn't weighted as heavily, he would have to drive more like a robot. So it'd be interesting to see those styles come back out, like old school Chris Forsberg, Ryan Turk going back to maybe his crazy roots. And then you get guys like Chelsea who already have an insane style. And now we might see him be able to progress a little bit more, get some higher podium finishes because what he's already doing is going to be worth more.
Exactly. We're hoping that it's going to give the drivers more incentive to loosen up a little bit on track. You were talking about Osbo being a little bit more robotic. The unfortunate thing with the competition side of things, and this is something that as much as we try to explain this to fans and people outside of the sport that are looking in, stylish sometimes looks great, but it could be unpredictable, right? It's difficult to be wild and really loose on the track and repeat that and be able to put together that same run over and over again. And the thing that Osbo is so good at is repeating a high-level technical run. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily stylish, like you were saying, but it is accurate. Mm-hmm. And he's found, and so has Papadakis, that being accurate and repetitively doing that accurate high-level technical run is enough sometimes to give them the advantage, right?
Yeah.
So it's on us to try to incorporate that technical drive that they're trying to go for, but get them to put in a little bit more style. And style is such a it's a difficult word to peg. It's difficult to nail down what style is. And we've had a hard time, with the wording of how we're doing our judging, trying to be as accurate as possible, I guess is the word. Like you're trying to portray to the fans who maybe are a little bit more new to the sport what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes the word sport isn't accurate, but we've kept it because we think that it's part of the vernacular of drifting. It's in there, right? It's ingrained. Doesn't matter where you go in the world. So it's a word that's going to remain, I think, for quite some time.
That's pretty nuts. Like it's nice to see. Anytime there's a shakeup is definitely good on my end. That's for sure. As a spectator, right. Especially as somebody who in recent years just kind of became like the diehard fan, where it's like watching every event, all that stuff. I think it's gonna shake the cobwebs off of viewing it. Maybe not that it's not exciting, but when you watch it and you're looking for that minutia and everything, every little detail, every little piece of we knew such and such team changed this year. How's that going to affect their runs? Like for me, that's the technical stuff that I absolutely love.
I agree with you. We're really looking for this to progress the sport as much as we can without, we're not trying to reinvent the sport. We're not trying to, shake things up in a negative way. We're just trying to progress. We're trying to take it to that next level while being as fair as possible to the drivers themselves, as exciting for the fans as possible. But we have to understand that not all the fans are as deeply, into the sport as we might be. We like. It sounds like you're a very technical. You have very technical knowledge of the sport as well. But the people that come in and are casual fans, we don't want to alienate them from the sport by, he got a minus 0.3 over here because his, he pulled a handbrake for 3 feet too long or whatever. We want to give the drivers the ability to go out there, drive how they want to drive, while adhering to we have to have a basic level of requirements, if you will, for the drivers, right?
Yeah.
And we've reduced, we don't have outright zeros for straightening and things like that anymore. That's not to try to say that it's okay to straighten when you're drifting. That's not the goal of that. We're not trying to say, drive straight and you're going to win. It's if you make a slight error that, some people say, straightening should be the death of that driver right on the spot. No, it's if they have a slight hiccup that the car looks like it went straight for a short period of time, but they're trying really hard. They're pushing really hard. We're not going to give them a 0 and they're done. It's going to be a deduction in our heads where we're going to say, okay, that driver made that error, but I want to give him the desire, the push to go for the next run where he might be chasing or leading or whatever the next run's going to be, where he doesn't feel defeated already. Like, oh, I've got a 0. There's no way that I'm going to do well now. No, he can say, I'm at a slight disadvantage right now. I can go push really hard in whatever position I'm going into. If that other driver makes the same or a worse mistake or error in his run, I'm still in this game. I might still win. I can still do great. And I think that what happened before was the drivers were so scared to make a tiny error that they weren't throwing it out anymore. They weren't driving in a way that was exciting or fun to watch. So I think that in the last couple of seasons, the driving has definitely improved. The tandems are closer. The drivers are having more of an ability to showcase their style and their skill. You can see the difference. My perfect, what I really like to look at is the difference between Chelsea and Bond.
Yeah.
In the same chassis, and their styles are completely different, but they're totally able to do their individual driving, little tricks that they have, or Chelsea's crazy transitions or whatever it is. They can do them within the architecture that we built, like the framework, let's say, of judging, and they can still do well independently with those different styles of driving, which I think is amazing, fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's funny how Chelsea still drives as if he has an E46. Like,
you're absolutely right.
It's 100%. If you watch how he drives, his cars on his separate channel, the way he's transitioning, the way he's leading corners, the way he's spotting corners, he's still driving the Mustang like it's an underpowered, turbocharged high RPM engine. But I think that's why we saw him kind of like almost shit the bed in Long Beach when his first time. He's like, oh, wait a minute. No, I can't do that anymore. Like the moment I put my foot into this, it's going to grip and shoot forward. I can't huck it in the same way. I have to lead into those into the transitions. I can't just come 100% off throttle, let it snap and catch it. I have to come off a bit, catch some grip, and then go back down. So that, yeah, you're right. Whereas Vaughn has been a Mustang guy since, I swear to God, he was born in a Fox body. So he knows what that wheelbase is going to do. He knows how Ford specific vehicles have, suspension designed for straight line traction. So it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting. I was gonna say, I always want the guys to there's got to be a demo day, just even on a skid pad, where every driver comes out and they just pick random cars and they go and drive other people's cars.
That, I think, the closest we have to that was the Falcon days, where at SEMA they get to drive cars that kind of from the archives, right? You've got, I think Matt Field was driving like the old S13, and Dye was driving his old V8 car, but he'd let other people drive his old S13.
Yeah, they did that Grid Life too. They at Atlanta, they swapped up and everybody was jumping around in cars. JTP was out of the Mustang into the S13, and yeah, it was definitely cool to see.
Oh yeah, that stuff's awesome to watch. It's really, for me, I love, as a fan of the sport, somebody who's been watching drifting for a long time and has seen the drivers drive those cars and then retire them. I think it's awesome to watch them come out with those cars again, kind of dust the cobwebs off and try a bunch of different ones that they went, oh, I used to watch this car when I was a fan of Formula Drift, 7 or 8 years ago. And it's like, I've only been driving the series for a few, and I can't believe I'm getting to drive this car. That stuff is, I think, it's almost heartwarming to watch that kind of stuff. It's cool. It's really shows the human side of the sport. I wish, like you say, they would do it more often. It'd be really cool to see that. I don't know how much drivers would like to let another team altogether drive their car, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
It was, I caught Dio Shahara at Grid Life in Michigan in a very off moment. I wish I had my camera on me, but I was watching him run his hand up the side of his old car. And I was like, it was just one of those very fleeting moments where he was just about to get in, and Die's very ritualistic in what he does anyways. But he walked up to the car and he had all of his wind stickers on the windshield. Okay. I think it was on the windshield, somewhere on the car, and he ran his hand up it, and I was like, oh shit, it's like the Eleanor moment in Gone in 60 Seconds.
Exactly. Yeah, he's having a little talk with it, real quiet. Nobody can hear it.
Yep.
Making sure that the car is ready for him to throw it around the track.
Oh, man. Yeah,
very emotional, probably.
Oh, for sure. Especially you spend that much time, you win you win the championship, you win all those races, and then to be able to come back and do it again. Yeah, it was just neat. It was one of the,
for sure.
I'm glad I got to see it. I kind of wish I could have captured it, but then I was like, you know what? That's just my moment. I'm going to keep that one.
I think they had it parked at Irwindale. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, and I caught him standing there just staring at it. It was before the gates opened in the morning, and there was nobody around, and he's just standing there, kind of contemplating it. I guess he was looking at it, kind of walking around it from different angles. You could tell that he really has a special bond with that car.
Yeah. So, is there any other changes coming up that we should know about as super fans? I guess.
Super fans. I guess from the judging side of thing, those are the major changes.
Okay.
We're still using the chicane.
Nice.
We're going to keep all the run-ups the same length. That's been something we've been playing with over the last few years, is adjusting the run-up to initiation from the chicane, trying to get the right amount of distance for the cars to get up to speed, but not too much where the lead car can lift off. And play games, whether it's on purpose or just because of something that comes up.
Nobody plays games. Come on.
Right. Not everybody does them on purpose. I think sometimes things happen where we perceive it as a game, but it was an error or something like that. But so yeah, we're going to keep everything that way. Kevin's got all his measurements and everything. I don't think other than that, I think those are the things that are really going to shake things up. In terms of the fluidity and commitment, the way that we're describing fluidity and the way that we're describing commitment are very different than before. Fluidity is going to deal with the rotation of the car on its own axis.
Okay.
So how it's going to be moving around on its own axis around the track. Commitment is going to deal more with the forward momentum of the vehicle. So that's how we're going to be looking at those separately. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have initiation potentially in both of them, definitely in both of them. potentially more heavily weighted at different tracks in both of them. So the fluidity side of things will look at the way the car rotates the angle at initiation. The commitment side will look at if was it done at the latest initiation point, at the minimum, the bare minimum. And like I said, certain tracks we might give an advantage if you're earlier and more, more aggressive earlier. Let's say like in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So that'll be modified on a track by track basis as well. Now, something that I definitely need to point out is that line and angle are dealing with the car's line and angle at an inside clip or an outside zone.
Okay.
The style portion is going to deal with everything in between.
Oh, I like how you break that up.
We had a conversation, or I personally had a conversation with somebody somewhere in the world over the last couple of years, and I can't remember who it was or where it was. But as we were talking, and it's weird. I have these conversations with people. Like I was just sitting over here. We're at a barbecue, like I said, and I was just sitting with some guys that are drivers in the series, and they started asking these questions pretty deep. Like what do you think about the philosophy of drifting and this and that? And this happens all over the place with different people. And this conversation I was having with this person, it actually morphed into what I just told you. Line and angle deal with in the zones, at the clips. The style aspect deals with everything in between. And it's stuck in my mind. And we've been talking about that since then, like I said, in all of our talks in Japan and in the US as well. And I think we sort of tossed it around last season, but maybe we weren't ready for it. We already had things in place. But this off season, I really pushed for it and we talked about it and everybody agreed that it made sense.
Yeah.
It was easy to understand. It's easy to convey to the fans. The drivers are going to pick up on it right away. And this comes down to our big debate and conversations that we were having before about style. What is style? Is it the right word? What consists of a good style drive from a certain driver? And we feel that this is probably the best way that we can portray this to the fans, be as fair as possible to the drivers. So the style portion, like I said, is going to deal with fluidity and commitment. Fluidity is going to look at the setup to the transition itself, and post-transition.
Okay.
So is the car at the right amount of angle before the transition? Were there any bobbles? Was the car, did it look settled? Did the driver look comfortable? And then there's the flick itself. Was it a quick flick? Was it accurate? So when I say accurate, I mean, did it go from one amount of angle to the next amount of angle, and did it stop at the right point? Or did the driver have to put too much angle in and take some out, or not enough and add some more? And then you've got the post-transition, which is right before the driver would approach an inside clip or an outside zone. Are they coming in with less angle and then putting on angle as they get into the zone, which we don't want. We want you to transition to the amount of angle you want at the zone
hold it,
and then maintain that, right?
Yeah.
And then once the driver gets into the zone, that's where the line and angle judge will take over, and they'll say, he was coming in, he entered the zone in the right spot, but he left it early. All right. So the line judge will say the line wasn't appropriate there. The angle judge will look at the amount of angle as he enters the zone, and then through the zone and out of the zone. Were there bobbles? Did he tap the wall? Did he lose some angle when he did so? All of those things. As soon as the driver exits that zone, the style judge takes over again, looking for that next transition, or possibly like at Long Beach, from outside zone 1 to outside zone 2, there's no transition, but the car remains at angle from one zone to the next. Were there bobbles? Was it, did the driver look committed as well? Because that's another portion of style that we can't forget, is the commitment side of things. The best example I have for this is the comparison between James Dean and Piotr Wojcik in Irwindale last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If you look at their two different approaches from inside clip 1 to outside zone 2, it is night and day. In this comparison, you've got the series champion for that season, and you've got that event winner, right? The way that Dean was coming from inside clip was a little tentative. You could tell that he wasn't super comfortable throwing the car into big angle and using that angle and momentum to get him out to outside zone 2. But he was still getting to outside zone 2.
But then he would crank the angle on like 10, 15 feet out because he goes, oh, I've got enough speed. But I don't have enough angle. And you could see him almost, I'm assuming it was a clutch kick because I didn't see a lockup when he went into it. but then you clutch kick in to get that last couple of feet. So
right.
Okay.
So that would be considered something that was a little less
favorable
on the high end. Yeah, less favorable, less on the high end of the scores. But Piotr's transition from inside clip 1 to outside zone 2 was phenomenal. He thought every single time that he went through there, you'd kind of, like tense up, like, oh, he's going to go into the wall. And then he'd get through and he would make it through.
Mm.
And the way that he threw the car to a high degree of angle, got back on the throttle, as soon as he got into that zone, the car's momentum was used to get him to the outside zone. And it looked very much like he was going to crash every single time.
Which is what we want. not for him to crash, but that line.
Exactly. Yeah. That was exciting. It was, you could not ask for more commitment from a driver in that situation than that. And that's why he won that event. He was doing exactly what it is that we want to see from the drivers in that area throughout that entire event. And what he did in that event. So we talked earlier about Osbo being kind of more robotic, putting together a really technical run that he's able to repeat over and over and over again, but maybe that is a little less on the excitement side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Piotr at that event was able to put together a highly technical run that was also stylish and highly committed and looked amazing all at the same time. So that is the best example I can give you of what we are looking for from the drivers all over the place. It was phenomenal. I'm sure he's really excited at our most recent announcement that we're going back to Irwindale again. I bet that when he heard that we weren't going back, he probably went, oh no, I did so well there.
Yeah.
But now he'll be happy that we're going back.
Yeah. That's a whole other can of worms. I'm sure you and I could talk for several hours about. Me being, I work in sales and business for a 9-to-5 job. I know what contracts are like and negotiations are like and how often things literally come down to the last minute. So I was excited. I'm actually working with Riley Sexsmith this year, so I can be doing a lot of his media. So I've always wanted to go to the House of Drift. I was really sad when it came off because I was like, shit, this was my chance. Then it came back on. I signed this deal with NV Auto, so I'm just excited to go. It's selfish, but I want to go once.
You know that you're going to have at least 3 seasons worth of action at that track now, from what we've been told.
Good.
Which was a fascinating story that they had never signed more than a 1-year agreement with Irwindale, Formula Drift, that is, in the history of going to Irwindale. Every single year they'd wait until like just before SEMA, and then they'd go, okay, we're good for 1 more year.
Wow.
And that was it, 1 year. And it was like that for the entire history of Formula Drift at Irwindale. This is the very first time that they've signed a multi-year deal, and they've signed it for 3 years.
Good.
Yeah. So we know at least 3 years, and then we're going to have the last event at Irwindale, and then it'll probably get saved again.
One more collector coin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, out of all the tracks, which one's the hardest one to judge, whether it be by like physical perspective or, smoke covering it? Like I could see issues with Long Beach just due to trying to see everything. But then I could look at something like Texas where you can't see a lot because of the smoke. And then maybe something like Montreal because the viewing point wasn't that great. So I was just kind of curious which one's, in your mind, the hardest one to judge from.
Texas poses challenges. And the main reason for that is the length of the track. Now, we have tracks that are, I think maybe I would argue that Atlanta is probably longer.
Yeah.
The overall
total run space. Yeah.
Run space. Exactly. But it's more condensed and it crosses over onto itself. Texas is long and it's dragged out over this, lengthwise, it's very long physically, the track. Where we sit, you can only sit in one spot. Obviously you've got to try to choose a perspective that you can see the entire track. And in Texas, because it's so long, we have to rely on cameras a lot. And the perspective is very difficult for the depth of field, I guess you could say, like on the track itself, where the car is positioned at outside zone 2. Or maybe I think we had a touch and go there last season.
Yeah.
Where we paved the extra width. So
which we needed every foot of, apparently.
Absolutely. We're looking at kind of 90 degrees, let's say, at that portion, and you can't tell where the car is on the pavement from our perspective. It's really difficult. So we have to have a camera that faces the right way to give us that perspective. And the thing with that track is we have multiple areas like that on that track. One of the most difficult tracks that we've had to judge at was Homestead in Miami, which was like 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
We couldn't even see the initiation or half the first corner. That was very, very challenging at that track as well. And then you've got some like New Jersey where it's a bowl. You can see every little thing that happens. It's fantastic. I love it for that. But because it's a bowl, it's actually sunk into the ground. The smoke just collects, and there are trees around it. And sometimes we have to sit and wait for 5 minutes just to let the smoke clear if it's not a windy day. So that track poses different challenges as well. Yeah.
So they've all got their thing.
They all have their thing. Road Atlanta is great because of where we are. The viewpoints, we can pretty much see everything, but we do rely heavily on the camera systems there as well because the initiation is far away.
Yeah.
It's a good distance away, but the initiation, we can really see it well because of our perspective. We're looking straight on at the drivers as they come down the hill.
Yeah,
so it gives us a...
Are you at the bridge or that little angle? Yeah, you're in that little shack just off to the side of the bridge, right?
We are just to the, I don't know if you'd say, like, as the drivers are coming up the hill, we'd be on their right. We're kind of in the horseshoe, on the edge of the horseshoe. Yeah. Yep. So we can see most of everything there. But again, the distance, you just want to see certain little intricate things that the cameras will provide you the viewpoint for.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's fun. Now, what? Another personal question here: is there anybody either in Pro-Am or Pro-2 or anybody coming up the ranks that's got you super stoked? Like one driver, and I know it's very difficult for you because you're judging. You're supposed to be you can't pick favorites, but I'm sure there's been some stuff you've seen. You're like, that is going to be someone to watch out for.
Yeah, I don't have, it's hard to be. What's the word here? Authentic when I say that I love drifting.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the outcome of an event,
Fair enough.
As much as I say that, people don't believe me. I'm sure people think, oh, you favor this guy or that guy. I really don't. Yeah. I don't care.
Well,
I do see
you don't have any
talent. Right. I don't. Either way, whoever wins or loses, it's no difference to me, right? But I do see little bits of talent that you can notice. I don't see Pro-Am so much, but Pro-2, of course, we judge all of those events. So I've been watching the drivers kind of progress in that series. And the one car and driver combo that I saw that I really think is going to be comfortable coming into Pro right away is Dirk Stratton.
Yeah.
That car looked like a Pro car in Pro-2. It looked, the way it moved, the way that he was able to drive it as well. He looks very comfortable in it. It seems like he's going to come in, and I'm not saying he's going to win or he's going to do really well right away, but I think he's going to have the best chance of being comfortable right off the bat in that car, driving the way that he does. Things are going to change a little tire-wise for him, I'm sure, coming up from Pro-2 to Pro. So I've seen videos. I follow a lot. Most, if not all, the drivers on Instagram and all of that. And I saw some of his some testing videos. Car looks great again. So I think
settles.
He's gonna do,
it's
he's gonna do pretty well.
And you know what? Having Nick Swan as your manager, mentor. I don't know what Nick is. He's family now. I know that. But having Nick around you is massive as well because he's a no bullshit kind of guy. He's been in the drifting community for a long time. So me personally have met Dirk a few times. I actually did an interview and we did like a driver profile with him. And it's super interesting. I always love the guys, what they're like behind the scenes and then what they're like on track. I recently put together a very short teaser video for my work with Riley, and one of the audio clips came up. I'm like, it's amazing how meek and mild he is, and then he gets out on track and he's a madman. Dirk is very similar to that. Behind the scenes, he is super quiet. He's very reserved, and then you get him out there and you're just like, you would think the guy is just mainlining adrenaline all the time.
The personalities can change when they get behind the wheel.
Yeah.
People get more aggressive, they get more assertive. Then you perceive them to be in public, but it's fascinating to see.
Come on, one more beer. I don't know what time it is there, but go for it.
No, you just gave me a chair. I had to stand near a wall plug so I could plug my phone in.
Oh, sorry, dude.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Dirk's going to do. I think he's got a good backing. He's got an amazing program. He didn't change his chassis moving into Pro 2 or Pro, which is, I think, the biggest mistake guys make.
Absolutely.
Very rarely does a guy come in with a new chassis and do well. There's obviously exceptions to that rule, but I think they were very smart doing that, sticking with that chassis. And now we're seeing Matt Field build one of them. So obviously there's something to it.
Right. You have to wonder how much Matt Field was watching Pro 2 over the last couple of seasons and saying,
yeah,
that Dirk Stratton looks pretty good in that Corvette. That thing looks really great.
Well, we had Matt on the podcast not that long ago, and he straight up said that he talked to Dirk at Grid Life Road Atlanta, and there was, I think that whether or not that was the definitive moment he decided to make the choice, or that was what led into it. Okay. Dirk definitely had a huge influence on Matt making that move.
And it's, I think Dirk was hoping to be the first Corvette, not the first Corvette, but the only Corvette, let's say.
Yeah.
At this moment in Formula D, and now he's got Matt in the Pro Series anyway.
Well,
he's got Matt to contend with.
And that car has a lot of very unique features to it, having the torque tube, having that momentum under the car. I've got to think that creates some type of gyroscope effect, having a shaft moving that quickly with that much mass, that low to the vehicle. I'm kind of curious how that would play into, and this might be like a Papadakis question or a Mike Kojima question, but there's got to be something to having that gyroscope effect that low on the vehicle to how stable it is in corners, because that car, the way that it transitions and the way that it holds drifting looks very settled, even though it's a very loose setup.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's
and you have to wonder how much of that Daigo Saito's taking advantage of now as well with his Corvettes.
Well, was taking, I don't know how much internet you have, but
it looks pretty ugly. Apparently it's going to be able to be fixed, which is good news. But he has, 3 of them now or something? So
yeah, it's not like he doesn't have the money to fix that. So
yeah, and he's got another one sitting there ready to go. So I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah. How do you see? We're seeing a lot more guys push their social media, especially YouTube. Odie's coming out with his own series. Matt came out with his own series. I believe Matt Kaufman's got one in the works too. Are you seeing that as that's got to be a mainstay in professional drifting now, to have a huge social media following, or at least something in the works?
I think that it's important in any kind of sport or activity where you need to have people supporting you as fans. A guy with a desk job clearly doesn't need 50,000 supporters to be successful in his job. And the drivers that we have in any series that you're looking at, their main job is driving on the track, but without the support of sponsors, that's not going to happen, right? They need to have guys behind them. The way that you're going to have sponsors is by having a lot of people with eyeballs on you. So I think that it's definitely, it's been a long time coming. Some drivers have been really good at this for a bit longer period of time.
Ryan, Chris, Vaughn being the big ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. These guys were, you can make the argument that a couple of them haven't been finishing very high in the series, but they're getting great support from sponsors, right?
Yeah.
And we know that it's not always the finishing order that matters in any motorsport. Sure, everybody wants to win. That is the goal. We get that. But you can still be very financially successful in any motorsport, not finish at the head of the pack, be mid or high mid pack, and do very well. You can be successful. You can have a long career. You can have a lot of supporters in terms of sponsors, and you can have a lot of supporters in terms of fans that are there watching you, keeping an eye on you, buying your products, buying your sponsors' products. That is a major portion of the game right there. And let's be honest, it's not that hard to do, really.
Ouch. I'm trying to make a career out of this. God damn it, man. Thanks for just kidding.
It's not hard, but it takes a lot of motivation to get that stuff done. You got to have somebody there to film everything that you do, because let's be honest, what they do is interesting. People want to watch behind the scenes stuff. They want to see that stuff. But you have to have the foresight to say, okay, come in today. We're doing a bunch of stuff. We got to film it. We got to then make a video out of it. You got to edit it all, put it on the internet, promote it. It takes some time to build that fan base. It's not easy. We need people like you to be there to do those things, to support the drivers, because they can't all do it on their own. You know, they're busy. They're building the cars. They're testing the cars. They have sponsor obligations, whatever it may be. But the opportunities are definitely there, especially now. I mean, there's nothing more. There hasn't been a time that's been more ripe for this than now. It's just going to get more and more as we go, right? So these guys are getting themselves positioned in the right way, and they can take advantage of a guy like the story. Let's say the career arc of a guy like Mad Mike Widet, who has built an incredible following,
huge
around
empire.
The world. People know that guy everywhere. It's incredible, and it's great to see. But he's really set the bar high, and these guys have a lot to catch up on for sure.
Yeah, I was chatting. We had Cameron Moore on 2 weeks ago. And I've got to actually, the guy who does all my editing for the podcast reminded me, anytime I say Cameron Moore, I have to leave a space between Cameron Moore and on, or else the recording always comes out as, we had Cameron Moore on.
Cameron Moore on.
But I was bugging him. I'm like, dude, why? Why don't we see more of you? You know, people know you're a butcher. Like, why isn't there a show about that? And he's like, man, he goes, I'm not great with technology, and I'm trying to find someone who can do that for me full time. It's just it's not an easy thing to commit to. So,
oh wow, is it really that hard?
Well, you know what? Admittedly, videographers, media guys, we're flaky. We're flaky as shit, and a lot of guys that want to do it expect to be paid huge amounts of money to do it, and that's a lot of the issues. There's a lot of ego on the creative side of things. So I think that might be part of the issue. And, you know, you've got to find a guy that, if he's not charging you a shit ton of money, has enough time to come out and film your ass. So, you know, for me, like, I work a full-time job. I do all this stuff on the side. I have an incredibly supportive wife that's like, yeah, you want to go out at, you know, all weekend to go film stuff, go ahead. But a lot of guys don't have that. So you either have to be single with nothing better to do, or you have to have a very supportive family base to be able to commit to following a driver for 8 events all over the United States.
Okay. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know, I mean, like, so either Cameron, who is working a full-time job, who, you know, I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have a lot of money, but he doesn't have the budget a lot of guys do. He's not going to be able to say to someone like me and be like, yeah, I'll pay you $1,500 an event, $2,000 an event, whatever, plus travel to make me content, right? That's not in his budget yet, but he can't get that budget until he has that media. So it's a huge catch-22.
That's that's an interesting position to be in, I guess. I've never really thought of it that way.
Yeah. Like
I've had a couple of people recently say, Ryan, you go everywhere and you meet all these people and you get to all these experiences. Why don't you start a YouTube channel? And I keep saying, I don't even know the first thing about doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the time or the energy to carry on a big camera and and it's not easy. But I hadn't thought of it from a driver's perspective, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, like I said, I'm going to be working with Riley, and I was a long chat with Dove, who's the owner of NV Auto, being like, what do you guys want out of this? What's the exchange here? You know, I get to come down to these events. I get to meet all these people, potentially get more people on the podcast, yada, yada, yada. In exchange, he needs videos. He needs same day edits. He needs photos. Like, it's a tough thing to work out for sure. So I don't envy guys that can't even look at something like that and be like, you know, oh, I'm going to do something. There's so many guys out there that have interesting lives behind the scenes, but if they don't have the budget or the time to film it themselves, they probably don't have the budget or time to have somebody else do it for them.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you've really opened my eyes on that one.
Yeah, Kyle Mohan, there's a guy, like, the dude rebuilds rotaries and teaches people how to race cars. I would watch the shit out of that. But if he doesn't have the time to do it himself, or a few grand to throw at some kid with a brand new Canon, like, it's kind of tough.
It's true.
So
yeah, you're absolutely right.
But anyways, I'm hoping all those guys find some ambitious kid who's willing to follow them around, because they all deserve a little bit more limelight. And as drifting gets bigger and we get more attention, more corporate sponsorships, big name companies coming in, you're going to need it for sure.
Absolutely. It already is an integral part of any program.
Yeah.
But I think it's just going to keep getting bigger as time goes on. And the guys that are positioned now, that are well positioned, they're going to be doing well.
Mm-hmm. For sure, man. So what else you got on the docket? We talked, you're everywhere. You're a crazy jet setter. It took us 100 Facebook messages just to line up this. So
yeah, it's not easy to get time to do these things. I wish I could have come up and met you at your place, but it's just with the schedule, and it's just getting started. This is my first event of the season. Going to Long Beach next week, of course, and then the week after Super Drift, and then doing some Mazda training stuff, and then I go to Russia for an RDS round, and then we get into Formula Drift Japan, and I've got 5 Japanese events, 5 Brazilian events, RDS in Russia, Gatbill as well in Norway and Sweden that I'll be doing 4 events there, I believe, plus the 8 rounds in the US. So it's a lot, but it's fun. I love it. Traveling, getting to see the world.
What's your best travel tip? I'm going to be traveling a lot this summer, just with all the events that I'm going to, flying to some, driving to others. Is there a one thing that gets you through those flights or those drives?
The one thing, so it depends where you're going.
Okay.
How much time you're spending in the plane. It can change everything. Like I'm flying home tonight, and it's 11 hours to Chicago and then another 5 to Vancouver. So it's a lot of time sitting in a plane. Japan is 12 to 13 hours, depends which way you're going. So you've got to prepare mentally for those long ones. You have to have activities that you can do on the plane, and you have to plan for time change as well. If you're flying to Japan, you leave at 5 p.m. here, you fly 5 hours or 12 hours, and you land there, and it's still 5 p.m.
So that would screw me up huge.
Yeah. The trick there is you don't sleep on the plane. So that when you get there, you're very tired. 5 p.m., you do a few things around town, you go to bed that night. The next day, you're on the local time. So you've got to adapt to where you're landing. For you, you're going to be going through the U.S. I mean, the most or is 2-3 hour time change. That shouldn't be too bad. But I always say pack light.
Okay.
The best advice.
I wish I could.
Overpacking is a big issue. And carry on all you can. Anytime you can, carry on. Don't check your bag.
I'm going to be packing audio gear and cameras and Pelican cases. Yeah. So
your situation is definitely going to be a little more challenging.
I'm so excited. Yay.
Hopefully they don't lose anything.
You know what? I'm going to carry the main things in my carry-on, and the rest will go in the bag. So as long as I have a camera and a laptop, I can get my job done.
That's all you need, right?
So yeah, that's awesome. But I won't hold you up for too much longer. We've already banged out an hour. I try and keep these shows around an hour anyways, but
great.
We'll eventually get to meet each other. I'll see you at Road Atlanta. I'll make a point to bribe you with an edible arrangement or maybe some maple syrup, something from the home country.
I love chocolate, so
okay,
you're on the right track. Fruit and chocolate is a good way to go.
All right. Is there anything that you want from Canada? I'll message you before I leave, but if there's anything you need, you forgot. I brought everything to make poutine down to Grid Life Atlanta last year. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Fries, gravy, cheese curds, everything.
I have to make some deliveries when I go to Long Beach.
Oh, really?
So I got to bring some ketchup chips, I think all dressed, maybe poutine chips, and some Kinder Surprise.
They don't have them in the States. Things. Yeah, they're illegal in the States.
Yeah. So I'm going to hopefully not get caught at the border.
Yeah. They think you're smuggling drugs, but you're smuggling Dutch chocolate.
It's a chocolate egg, I swear.
Yeah. There's nothing inside, I swear to God.
Yeah, just chocolate.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for making a bit of time. Enjoy the rest of your time in Brazil, and we'll definitely chat soon. Maybe we'll do a postseason wrap-up show and see what you think of the year, see how these new rule changes worked out, and go from there.
That'd be great.
Cool. Where can everybody find you if they want to stalk you on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff?
It's Launtaigne, the way to pronounce my last name. It's Lawntang. Gotcha. So lawn like your front lawn, and tang like the orange juice. That's me.
Gotta have a catchphrase, right?
Yeah, that's how to pronounce it. Because a lot of people look at it and go, I'm not going to try that.
No.
It's not that hard. But anyway, I made it my Instagram handle because it's the easiest way to keep the name relevant, I guess.
There you go. Well, we're super stoked. Don't make any bad calls this year. You get to, feel the wrath of all the drift fans out there.
I can't wait.
Oh, I don't envy your job, dude. I don't envy your job.
I've grown some thick skin over the years. It's all right.
I bet.
Yeah.
I was going to bug you about some calls, but I was like, we'll get to that later.
All right. Yeah,
all right,
you can have another call if you want to discuss that stuff at any time. You let me know.
There we go. We'll have to have a couple of real Canadian beers, some James Reddy or something skanky like that.
All right.
All right, dude. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that podcast with Ryan Launtaigne. We really enjoyed speaking with him. All those rule changes are going to, change things up so drastically in Formula Drift this year. I'm really excited to see how all the drivers are going to adapt to some of these changes. As always, thank you again for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Please make sure to share this podcast to anybody you think that'd be interested. And I want to take a minute here and do a really big shout out to all the Patreons that have jumped on and helped us out. So shouts out to Jordan Culp, Henry Wall, Dev Clare, Kevin Vines, Rajan Thiru. I know you too, and I know I pronounced that incorrectly, and I'm sorry, dude. Heather Rundle and Peter Wall. Without you guys, you guys are the beginning to hopefully what is going to be big things. If you haven't jumped on the Patreon yet, check out the link below. You get extra podcast episodes every week. You get extra content, interactive polls, and of course, a chance to win the car. Also, a big shout out to our sponsor this week, which is Quick Latch. Make sure to check them out. We've done videos on these as well. I'll throw a link to that so you can see how easy they are to install, how easy they are to use, and the kind of quality product that they are. But thanks again, guys, for listening to the Pistonhead podcast. New episodes out every Wednesday, new episodes on YouTube out on Mondays and Fridays, and we will catch you next week.